now that you've gotten a chance to see these guys and to work out with them in a baseball setting a little bit more, you knew, kind of maybe where you wanted to fit some folks in, but now that you've seen them in a little more action, what's got you most excited about next Friday?
Well, you can't ever replace experience, and we've got an abundance of that, as a couple of the guys mentioned, on the field. And although we don't have a lot of starts under our belt on the mound, we do have quite a bit of innings. Tanner Perkins threw an awful lot for us last year. Taylor Hydell at the end of the season was one of our best arms, as well as Phil Weatherall. Brian Edelin had some great starts for us last year. He pitched great against a lot of big-time midweek competition and allowed us to have such a good non-conference record by the quality of his start. So we finished second in the league in ERA last year, and I think our pitching staff from top to bottom is better. Personally, you lose a Matt Ridings, who's the best pitcher that's ever pitched in the Sun Belt Conference, and certainly at WKU. So yeah, you don't replace him with one guy, but you replace him with everybody being collectively better. And we've got some young kids that I'm really excited about seeing get out there on the mound. They're fully capable. Justin Hageman is a true freshman, drafted by the Royals out of high school. He's got as good a talent as anybody I ever saw on Friday night in the SEC. That's how special he can be. Now, having said that, everybody's got to learn the hard way. So how do you get your experience? You get them out there, you get them their innings, and then I think once we do that with a few of these young guys on the mound, by the time conference rolls around, they're going to be a little bit more seasoned and ready to help us.
At the end of last year, Coach, you've never been one to pull any punches. I'm sure the message at the end of the year last year was a stern one, and the guys were saying that after that was delivered, just leave it alone and move forward. What kind of was the theme of the talk at the end of the year, and now moving ahead, what's the theme going into this one?
Well, yeah, this year's club, shouldn't have to carry that albatross around their neck from last year's team. Now, having said that, we've got a lot of the same kids, so it's important for us to talk about what happened, and there's lots of different ways to look at it, but I want to make this clear to everybody going into this season. We got a great group of guys. No one slept less this summer than me, knowing that we were the highest RPI team to not play in the NCAA tournament last year, and we were. And you can cut things up any way you want to, and I've cut them up every way you can imagine, but the bottom line is we lost 5 extra inning games in the league. And the year before, we won every one of those with different players for the most part. So sometimes you have to learn how to get those things done. We go 3-2 in those, or 2-3. We're playing in the NCAA tournament, and that's how good our non-conference schedule was. And when you talk about the whole body of work for a season, everybody remembers the end, and we're all judged on how we finish, no question. And last year, the most frustrating thing for me was that we didn't finish well, and we usually have. But you're talking about a season where we beat Kentucky twice, we beat Vanderbilt, we beat Texas A&M, we beat Baylor. We beat a lot of awful good teams. We beat Tennessee at home, and that's what got our RPI to be that high. After the conference tournament, it was as high as it was the year before when we got at large. So the difference was those 5 games in the league, and that's what it boils down to. A hit here, a big hit there, a pitch there, and that's baseball. And that's where we've talked about we've got to be willing to, when we get in those positions, somebody has to step up and get that done for us, because that one win might be the difference. This year's no different. Our schedule's just as tough, looking at it on paper before the year, and you never know. Last year we ended up playing 24 games against teams that played in the NCAA tournament. Out of 58, that's an awful lot. I'm an English major, but that's got to be 40%. And there can't be many teams in the country, outside of the SEC probably, that played that many. And our guys did a great job in them, So overall, we did a lot of neat things. Third year in a row, we increased broke our own school record for attendance, and we're certainly appreciative of all our fans that, come out and support us. We've lost one conference series in the home series in the last 3 years. So coming into the NIC, I think most teams know they better bring their A game, and this year's going to be no different.
Right now, how do you see that pitching staff shaking out? I mean, guys who've thrown innings, but not a lot of guys who, have that Friday night type experience.
Yeah, and we're going to have to run some guys out there and find out. JB, I think Tanner Perkins is a guy, he had 12 starts last year, maybe our most experienced starter. Brian Edelin's got experience starting mostly during the week. Taylor Hydell's been throwing the ball awful well. His stuff is really, really good, and we just got to get him out there and see. Justin Hageman, like I mentioned, is a true freshman, but brings a Warriors mentality out there to the mound. So I'm very impressed with what I see from him. And so the starting pitching, I think, will shake out. Our bullpen this year, I think, has got a chance to be better than last year. Just having Ryback last year playing was a blessing to all of us, and there's something, I'd catch myself going, wow, this is really amazing. The fact that he was first team All Sun Belt coming off of what he did is mind-boggling. He's a much better pitcher now than he was last year at this point. And I got off to a great start last year and then struggled down the stretch, as we all did. But the great thing about this group of juniors and seniors is they're tough enough and smart enough and want to win bad enough to be able to look each other in the eye and say, here's where I need to get better. And I've told them, as a coach, I've had to do that. I obviously didn't do as good a job down the stretch as I should have done last year, but there's some things I learned from that experience that I think will help me help our ball club as we get into it. So we're going to take all the things we needed to learn from last year and apply them to this year's group. We've got a talented group, we really do, and they're a blue-collar bunch of guys. I love being around them every day, and we can be a handful for a lot of people.
Go ahead. It's last year, you lost an emotional leader like Matt Payton. That would always, give other teammates a kick in the pants, keep them motivated. Over this off season, who's been the guy to really step up and kind of keep everybody focused during off season workouts and remind them?
Yeah, I think this year it's been more of a collective effort, and that's what you get when you got an older group, which I would really prefer. Now, Rye Davis and Matt Rice are our two co-captains, and they've done a tremendous job, but on any one day, I'll look out there and see Cass getting after somebody, Logan Robbins, Casey Dykes, Jared Andrioli, all the guys who've played a lot of baseball here are taking ownership in that, and that's what you want. The guys are picking each other up, they're holding each other accountable for their effort, and that's an important part of the overall atmosphere. Matt Payton was an outstanding teammate and player. Matt was a little bit like a roller coaster some days mentally, and I think our team maybe mirrored that, and that's no knock on him certainly. But we've got some guys that maybe were a little bit more steady across the board and don't have the peaks and valleys on this group from a work standpoint.
With the staff, obviously Ryan's going to be in the bullpen. Are you tempted to take him out and put him in the rotation, or do you like him back there more?
Yeah, I like him back there. We've gone through that. We talked about starting in the fall and working on things. Everybody's wired differently, and I think Rod Davis is wired to want the ball, first of all, in that situation, which is the most important thing. Second of all, he's got the mentality to be able to go ahead and flush whatever happened yesterday down the drain when he takes a shower and come out there ready to go again the next day. And that's the most important thing when you got a late guy, because you're going to blow saves, somebody's going to make an error, a bad hop, whatever. There's things that you maybe can't control sometimes. You got to be willing to forget about that, good, bad, and go out there and get after him again the next time you're called on.
As far as the lineup goes, you guys do bring a lot back there. Last year that was a group that, like you said, peaks and valleys wise. Some days it was 18 run, whatever it was, and other stretches it would go dry. But that's that's the game, I guess, in and of itself. What do you guys expect from them, top to bottom?
Well, having 6, pretty solid bats back is always helpful. We added a couple as well that I think are really going to help us. Ivan Hartle's a junior college transfer. He'll play second base for us. Had a great junior college career. Was the most valuable player of the Junior College World Series as well as the National Junior College Defensive Player of the Year. And Ivan is a steady Eddie kind of a player. I mean, he is just going to come out there and he does the same thing every day. Probably not great at any one thing, but he's really good at just about everything. And he'll team up in the middle with Logan and give us a solid double play combination there. The other new player that we've added positionally, Ryan Hutchison, who will play right field for us. Teammate of Ivan's, also was on the team that won the national championship. And just been a great surprise. Maybe done a little better than I thought even he would have coming in, but he's looking like a guy that's going to hit in the middle of our lineup and play a solid right field. So, those were 2 spots that we felt like we had holes that needed to be filled, and those 2 guys have come in and done it. And maybe the best thing about those 2 kids is I think our team and our coaching staff certainly, they feel like guys that have been here since they're freshmen. They've done a wonderful job of integrating themselves into the team. Sometimes transfers come in and have a little bit of trouble with that, but they've been amazing. I think all the guys love them, and they've been a big part of us help building that team atmosphere. Ryan Huck's a year older and better, DH'd a lot for us last year. He'll play some first and be our number 2 catcher. Matt Borg-Schulte is another sophomore, it's a year older and better. He got thrown in the fire a little bit last year and struggled, but he's gotten a lot better, had a great summer, bigger, stronger. He's going to get some at-bats. Some other guys that are, going to be battling for that DH spot, Chris Bullard, who's a senior, the football player, and Chris has done a really good job this spring. Just being able to be a full-time baseball player, I think, has really helped him. Another senior, Matt Bracken, who has kind of had a tough career here due to injuries, but he's a wonderful kid and has really swung the bat well for us, so I think he's going to help us.
Matt Rice gets a lot of attention for the home runs and being a good middle of the lineup hitter. But how about defensively, as catching with the young pitching staff? How important is that going to be for him to handle them well?
Well, I think it's extremely important. I mean, catching is, catch, shortstop, center field are so-called defensive positions. And Matt does a great job with that. He's a very good receiver. He's worked hard to get better at that every year. He throws great and blocks well. His challenge this year with a younger, maybe less experienced pitcher staff is going to be the mental side of how to keep those guys focused. And each pitcher's different. Some of them you got to kick in the tail, and some of them you got to pat on the back. And so that's part of it, is learning what you have to do. And I know him and Coach Allen, Coach Myers have been working hard on that aspect of it. And the beauty of our team, I think, is our defensive positions, catcher, center field, shortstop. We also have some guys that are pretty good offensive players there too, so it really adds to the overall balance of your ball club.
You said last year that depth became a bit of an issue, as you had to grind guys really hard. I guess top to bottom, do you feel like this group is deeper, or does that kind of depend on how these new guys progress?
Yeah, there's no question we're deeper. I mean, that was evident from the very first day. We've got more kids that can play more spots. We've got a couple new players that I'm really excited about seeing out there. Scott Wilcox is a freshman from Toronto, Canada, who I think is going to be an outstanding player here. He's a left-handed hitter. He can play all 3 infield positions. Just a really blue-collar kid. He's going to get a chance to get a lot of at-bats this year. It gives us some flexibility. If it's a day we want to give Rice a day off behind the plate and just DH him, we can catch Huck and move Dykes across to first, and Wilcox will play third. So we couldn't do a lot of those things last year because of our lack of depth, and it also is going to help us injury proof ourselves a little